Go ahead and start with some housekeeping, but I'd like to go again and welcome everyone to today's webinar. It's targeting your ideal customer. So before I start the presentation, I'd like to mention some overall library information that I will reiterate at the end of the program and go over some housekeeping. The library is open and we have resumed our previous COVID hours. We do require all visitors to wear a mask and practice social distancing. If you'd like to still use our services remotely, we have curbside pickup, and you can email us at librarian@champaign.org. We're also providing virtual book a librarian services if you need help at home. To request a session, visit www.champaign.org/book-a-librarian to fill out a request form. We can give you a call, correspond over email, or meet via service that you're comfortable with, such as Zoom. Let's go over some of our Zoom features this evening. Starting at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you're able to adjust your audio settings, like changing your speaker. Moving to the center bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat and raise hand option. Clicking on the chat will open and close a chat box on the right-hand side of your Zoom window. I invite you to type in a chat as needed, and also make sure you know who you're talking to. So if you click on the chat box, you can select to talk with just the panelists or to chat with the panelists and attendees, so everyone in the room. And this is a great place to ask questions, maybe converse with your fellow webinar people. Gosh, the name is fleeing me right now, but yeah. Your other attendees, the other attendees. And lastly, you also have the option to raise your hand. So if you don't feel comfortable typing in a question over Zoom, you just click on the raise hand option, and I will notice it on my screen and I will unmute you as long as you're comfortable with that. I would also like to reiterate that we are recording this webinar and we're now making our webinars available not live, but available on our YouTube platform for future viewing. If you see something that you might want to reference later from this webinar, you can definitely click the link found on our YouTube page and access the webinar. So without further ado, here's your presenter. It's me, Madeleine Wolske. All right, so one of the most important things your company needs to do is to create a concrete definition of who your ideal customer is. Not everyone is going to buy your product, nor should you want them to. Some people just aren't a good fit for your offering, and if you market and sell to them and get them to buy, you'll find out first thing that you might scare away them or just how bad of a fit they are, because they might post something on social media that isn't great for your brand or company. And if you want your company to grow better, you need to have a deep understanding of your ideal customer. So tonight, we're going to do just that by conducting a market research analysis of demographics, psychographics, and creating a buyer persona. So if you haven't already, I would recommend you grab your library card and have that on hand, because later on in this presentation, we are going to be going through some of the databases that we provide at the library. All right. So demographic targeting is a type of market segmentation according to population statistics. This data can effectively be segmented into different markets, helping companies target consumers more accurately than ever before. By gathering demographic information, we can better understand opportunities and limitations for gaining customers. This is a blend of demographic data with consumer behavior and economic trends. It could be including population data like age, wealth, family, interests. It could include information found on social media tracking, like using Facebook lead services to see the demographic of who most interacts with your posts and what else they enjoy. It could also include the spending habits of people who are like the individuals who interacted with your content previously. Regardless of how many demographics are being measured, the goal should always be the same: to better discern your target. So demographics can potentially reveal not only who your consumers are, but what makes them tick. Since demographics, like trends, tend to change over time, it's recommended to conduct demographics-based research on a regular or semi-regular basis. Okay, so we're going to be taking several things into consideration when we're thinking about what is good for your market. So first off, demand. Is there a desire for your product or service? Market size. How many people would be interested in your offering? Economic indicators. What is the income range and employment rate? Location. Where do your customers live and where can your business reach? Lastly, trends. It's important to gain a sense of the specific market share that will impact your profits. Also included on this is COVID. For example, normally we might utilize events and indoor gatherings to promote our brand or service or use that as a way to expand our current reach. We no longer have that avenue available. So we have to really get creative with who we're marketing to and how we're marketing to them. So we will create some beautiful buyer personas today. So what makes your ideal customer? Who is your customer? What are their interests? What do they buy? How much would they spend on your product? We have two initial objectives to break down in our ideal customer, and you can see this in the image, demographics versus psychographics. First, we're discovering which sectors or subgroups live in the region our business is in. So identifying demographic characteristics. And secondly, we're creating a comprehensive image of the traits that a typical member of these sectors possesses. So psychographic traits. For example, demographic information might tell you something about a person's age, but psychographic information will tell you that the person is just starting a family and is in the market for baby products. Demographic segmentation is a great place to start and divides your market into broader strokes, but psychographics gives marketers greater leverage in influencing conversions, or essentially influencing customers' decision to purchase. So you can't create a buyer persona without both of these traits. I'll do a quick pause in case you all have any questions. I do love that infographic. All right. So if demographics really only tell me straight identifiers within our population, so again, this is age, ethnicity, wealth, family size, what's the point of including this information? It's not telling me what they're buying. So no, it doesn't, but these demographics encompass the study of human populations and they represent the impact that these populations have on the market. So any number of variables can be applied to a demographic profile. Common demographics include, again, we're going over the age, ethnicity, wealth, family size. Think of the United States Census that we all hopefully recently filled out. So that's kind of the information that people are getting from these demographic analyses. They are looking at surveys, administrative records, who bought a house, when did they buy the house, how much money do they make in their current position. And the last thing I want to focus on for demographic analysis, the more we know, the better we can target. So this is very closely related to geography. Where is your customer? What bracket do they what are they in? So demographic analysis. Looks like we're good on questions. All right, now a depth into psychographic analysis. So unlike demographic data, which is the broad category of potential customers, this data tells you about people's attitudes and beliefs. It allows you to tailor marketing to the demographic profile you identified earlier. So the field of consumer psychology is primarily interested in lifestyle, habits, behavior, and interests. Each of our unique psychological profiles, which is like our temperament, personality, quirks, other idiosyncrasies, greatly influence our behavior as consumers. For instance, if a marketer wants to segment her market based off of lifestyle as a psychographic factor, so our factor here we're looking at is lifestyle in general, she needs to look at where individuals are at in their life cycle. So is it better to target people who are still in school, or those who are established in their career, people who are just having children, people who maybe are grandparents. A consumer's habits or interests can tell a marketer about the things these consumers spend a lot of time thinking about and participating in. So if your target customer loves yoga and you're trying to sell them your nutritional counseling program, you can incorporate images or offers that include yoga. Alternatively, you might advertise your programs at a yoga studio. So it's also really smart to think about how this has affected, how social media has affected psychographic analysis. So our economy is based entirely off clicks, especially right now since most people are doing all of their shopping online. And whether products are in an online marketplace or through published content, the time lag between an ad and a purchase drops in a matter of seconds. So if something isn't tailored specifically to the person looking at that marketing item, they're not going to be interested. It needs to catch their attention like that. So by creating and identifying these psychographic traits, we're able to understand the consumer's emotions, predict how they're going to react to certain imagery or where we put it. It essentially allows us to market the most accurately as possible. Something else I thought was pretty cool, this is called psychographic marketing. It plays on the subconscious personality characteristics, and it's perfectly suited to help advertisers capitalize on that impulsive decision making, that, ooh, I like that, click yes. It's that quick Instagram, like, oh, it's a beautiful image, it totally appeals to me, and that's like a 1-second thought, less than that. But according to a 2009 experiment, so these behavioral targeting increases click rates by 670%. So if you were just basing your marketing off of demographics, it's not enough. I mean, the evidence is there. I think it's really cool that it has increased click rates by 670%, essentially making marketing that much easier for your business. So on that note, diving a little deeper into psychographic analysis, brands can customize messages and tones accordingly. So let's try to market a vegan protein bar. I'm on a health kick for some reason tonight. Sorry. You can run a Facebook ad targeted at athletes and fitness enthusiasts and maybe find some success. But by getting more granular and creating alternative buyer personas, which we will be doing later today, you could market to a segment of vegans who feel strongly about the mistreatment of animals. Or you could market to health-conscious people who feel guilty when they eat sugary energy bars. So it's that hyper-focus lifestyle choice that makes a psychographic analysis. So now, let's check out our tools so we can kind of apply these two demographic studies, these two demographic traits to our own businesses. So I am going to escape out of this screen, but make sure it's still sharing. And indeed it is. So I'm going to be, this is now the time where I recommend you pulling out your library card. If you don't have one, send me an email because I can hook you up with one. If your business is in Champaign or if you live and work in Champaign, I want you to use these tools. So we are first going to focus on demographics now, and I'll first show you how I got to the business page. So this is champaign.org, and I'm going to click on business. That was in the blue bar at the top, and I'm simply scrolling down all the way to the bottom, business tools, and I'm clicking on Gale Business Demographics Now. Oh, thank you. I got an email. I will send you a follow-up email if you would like. Now, so this is just kind of the landing page for Gale Business Demographics Now. I'm going to go ahead and click on this link. If you're using this at home, it will prompt you to put in your library card and PIN. Since I'm at the library right now, it automatically pops up. So that's another way around it. If you don't have a computer at home, or if you live in Sedoris, you can come into the library and use our great resources on our computers, which we have been limiting or currently our library time is limited to 1 hour, but we can figure out how to make it work for you. So let's figure out how to use Gale demographics now. So I always recommend starting in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see this geo filter. So you always need to start by narrowing down exactly where you're looking at to see the demographics that can apply to your specific business or service. So it would just search the entire US, which that's not my personal market. I want to look at places within Champaign. So I'm going to put in just the zip code 61821. So you'll notice I kind of waited until it popped up, and I'm now hovering over that 61821 Champaign. I'm going to click on it when it's orange. You'll see that location set orange box that popped up. That's how you know it's working. If you do not get that orange box, it hasn't gone through. So here's something that I also might want to do. I want to look at Champaign County, but I kind of want to settle on just kind of the more metropolitan areas, if you consider Champaign County metropolitan. So I want to add in more than one location. So instead of just entering in another zip code, we're going to click Options, Geography List. That's going to pop it open. And I have all of these options to add alternative locations. So I'm scrolling down to the bottom, zip codes by county, clicking that. This is Illinois, Champaign. It's nice because it allows me to kind of see all the zip codes within our county. So I'm adding Urbana. Looks like I added 61821 again, so I'm going to delete that. I also want to add, let's go with Mahomet and Savoy too, those kind of sister towns, sister cities. All right, so I have these 6 choices, and I think that's going to be great for me, because what if I maybe want to put up a brick and mortar business? I want to make sure that it's in an area where I know people have enough money to spend on my stuff. So I'm now going to go to, now that I have my location all set up, I'm going to go to demographics. So clicking on that demographics tab, we have 2 options here, report types. So you have comparison and summary. We're first going to just focus on the comparison. And report name, this means like the type of report that it's going to push out for you. So you could do a business comparison. If you want to see all of the registered businesses within these area, you can see where they're located, how much money they're estimated to make, what's the NAICS code for this business. Right now, let's just focus on the demographic factors. So I'm just going to do complete demographic comparison chart just so we can see what it looks like. And I'm clicking on Run Report, waiting for that to load a little bit. So I'm scrolling down, and you can see in the columns, it has each zip code separated. So I can see, all right, how many, all of these different items. So what is the race and ethnicity makeup? Ooh, household income. So if I maybe want to put my business, the brick and mortar location, in a place that has a higher income. So we can do average household income. It looks like I probably want these 2. So maybe 61822 or even Mahomet if I want my location in a higher income level. So this is just an example of some of the demographics you can pop up. So what we're really focusing on today, though, is the psychographic groups. And Gale Business Demographics Now has this really cool thing called mosaic psychographic groups. So these are household-based consumer lifestyle segmentation systems that classify all U.S. households and neighborhoods into 71 unique types and 19 overarching groups. So I'm going to just throw up, I'm keeping on this comparison, and I'm going to scroll down to mosaic. So this is, we're going to do the household comparison report. So mosaic household comparison. I'm clicking right here, clicking Run Report. It's loading at the moment. And remember we had said psychographic, that's traits, interests. These mosaic comparison reports essentially put all of that information together and combine it with demographic information. So I can see, I want to kind of just find the top groups, or we call these segments, mosaic segments. So on the left-hand side, these kind of yellow icons here, the top ones in each zip code. So you can see there's a lot of zeros here. It's not showing the scattering of American royalty that might be in 61821. It is just highlighting the top groups. So these are the dominant clusters. So they're called clusters or groups. And we can see the population count. So let's look at, so in this area, 7.1%, that's pretty significant. So I'm on Group D, suburban style, and this is for my 61821. So this 918, that is the household count. So 918 households, and that's not including, like, that's not population, that's just households. And then 7.1%, that's population percentage. So let's go ahead and click on suburban nightlife to pull up this mosaic cluster. So this is a snapshot of the type of consumer that you'll find in this zip code. So this is in the group D, so one of those 19 groups, and then the smaller group 18. So suburban nightlife, upper established couples and families living mainly in metropolitan cities. This provides me so much amazing information because I can see the median age of the household, the type of property they own, the household size, how old their children are, and also key features. So these are social media fans, R&B music, politically liberal. It also tells me how comfortable they are using technology. You'll see this chart, it has like baby phone, which is typically people who are uncomfortable using tech, all the way to the larger phone with the heart. Suburban nightlife, they're hitting up in that wizard category. Also, channel preference, I will explain these. So this is essentially where they are most likely to get their marketed information from, or what they're most likely to be receptive to. So this is obviously a TV, so commercials. So they are most likely to be receptive to a commercial if you're creating an advertisement to them. This is snail mail, so direct marketing to the mailbox, still pretty likely. This is radio, so 96, not so much. This right here is text or SMS, so 71, pretty low. This is this at right here, this is email. So that's why it gets a little confusing because I always think of Twitter. But actually this 212, this is social media. So again, we have TV, direct mail, so people mail, oh my gosh, paper mail, radio, SMS or text messaging, email, and then social media. And in the top, we have this 2.1%. This is 2.1% of our population in the United States and 1.6% of households in the United States. So this is just a small slice of what makes America, America. You can also scroll down and it just shows you additional information. So if I'm going to go back to my Gale business page. This was in 61821, 7% of the people. If I want to start marketing to the people in that area, I know that they predominantly probably make 50 to 100 grand. So maybe I don't know, I get to decide the price point of where I want to put my products or services. Most have some college, not many have bachelor's degrees, or not as many as other demographics, but let's go back. So yeah, again, it also at the very end, this might be the most helpful when you're creating a buyer persona. It has just kind of like a brief, this is their profile for Facebook. That's how I'm going to do, or their bio. So it goes into what they enjoy, what they're more likely to spend money on, how they spend their money. So like, I love how it has looking to maximize their spending dollars. So receptive audience for advertising, traditional in their values. So it might be more pertinent to if you want to start a women's apparel, maybe have some more modest clothing along with, I don't know, some other things that you might include. So these Experian mosaic clusters are so helpful when you're determining who exactly your customer is. And again, this is just kind of overall like the top, the dominant clusters. That's again the mosaic household comparison report. So what happens if maybe we want to see all of the households? So we're going to do the cluster comparison. And you'll notice it's a little different. Not in the way it looks, but just in the way the data. These were all zeros previously. Now it's just showing us everything. Like American royalty is only 0.08 of the population for 61821. Instead of it just being 0 and showing us the top. So this just gives you a better idea of what are the kind of people who live around you, around your business, people who you plan on marketing to. How are they going to appreciate being marketed to, or what's going to be the most receptive for them? So this is just such a wonderful, and again, this is a comparison chart. Let's do a summary instead. So you'll notice that the report name switched. That's because the cluster one, I don't think it's available. Yeah. So we're just going to do household summary index report, also with the cluster, because I think it's fun to see the big mix of these clusters. All right, so now this is the whole thing. So dominant clusters are the colleges and cafes group. So I'm going to go to, that was 053. We can scroll down on it. So amazing. I agree. I think it's too cool. It's a little creepy, which is what makes it fun. So this was the most dominant basically profile in Champaign, Urbana, Mahomet, and Savoy, which makes sense considering we have a college community. So it's interesting also to see the channel preferences for this demographic compared to the previous one, whereas I think the top one for here is text message and radio, which I would not have thought. But then again, I am not in this demographic. So it makes sense that it doesn't make sense to me. All right. So any questions about Gale demographics? And I also want to point out, this is just one of the things that this amazing database can do. We're just specifically focusing on getting demographics and psychographics pertinent to creating your ideal customer. So it looks like we're good with this. I'm going to show you now a map feature. I'm a very visual person. I learn best when I can see my data instead of just reading charts. So I just clicked on the map feature. You'll notice that transferred all the locations that I had input in earlier to this map, and it's outlined in borders here. So I want to now see that information in this map. Maybe, again, I'm trying to figure out where should I put my women's clothing apparel store? Like, I want it to be maybe in an area where I want people to be buying my clothing who maybe have a little bit extra pocket money to spend. So I'm going to click on thematic controls, and that's the first one here. All right, looks like we're good on questions. And I'm going to click on variable. So it's enabled, make sure it's slid over to the right. So I'm going to choose the variable, and it's loading. And I want to still focus on that mosaic dominant distributions, but let's first do this and then we'll do something else. Sorry guys, I just got pretty excited. data. All right, so current year estimates, and I'm going to do a residential mosaic. So adult population, again, I'm just clicking the first one because I just want to make it pretty significant. And then let's see, these are again those 19 big groups, and I believe the one that I had found was, okay, 053, that's the most, so that's singles and starters. Colleges and cafes is the most prominent demographic within these areas that I've already determined. So now it's loading for a little bit. All right, so we're starting to get some color. Very nice. So this tells you exactly where those people are living, which also kind of says where the most people live in Champaign-Urbana. So I'm zooming in just a little bit, and you can see above 3.6. So these red areas, so instead of maybe, I would think, because I know like this 61821, maybe even kind of out here near Springfield and Staley, there's some pretty affluent people. But if I want to target this demographic here, the most popular one, I'm going to probably set up shop within this red area. And let's see if I zoom in. I don't know if it's going to further. Sometimes it will. Nope. I guess that's all just solidly. All right. So another cool thing about this, if you want to maybe just focus on demographic instead of the whole mosaic itself, and it looks like it's a little slow, so we're going to wait a second. By slow, I mean my screen is taking a while to go through. I'm going to go back to this variable here, go back to top. So again, this is before all the mosaic. I still want to do that women's clothing store. I'm going to keep thinking about where this red area is, and I'm going to see the consumer expenditure. So let's also do 5-year projections. Where are people going to be spending their money in 5 years? Let's do average consumer expenditure. Oop. Oh, this will take a while to load. But yeah, I really, okay, so here we go. 5-year projections, average expenditure. I can go to apparel and services. Let's do women and girls. Let's do women 16 and over. Wow, and again, it's crazy how detailed this is. All right, let's just say I'm gonna sell dresses. So now that's loading, and it shows you, so it'll actually organize, and this is by household. It's not where they actually buy that money, it's specific to the household. So I can see now, even though this area initially where that kind of hardcore demographic was, these people aren't spending a lot of money per household. Oh wow, it was lower than I thought. Oop. I think I might have clicked something accidental, but the same picture remains. You'll see in this area, okay, here we go. Yeah, so they spend over $132 per year specifically on women's dresses. So I now know, even though I might want my brick and mortar right here because I know it'll get more traffic, I want to target my marketing to this area specifically because I know that's the people who will spend the most money on dresses. All right, so here's now some options. I can, I don't know, maybe put a mailer in all of these people's mailboxes by just walking around to each of their houses. And you know what, that's a lot of work. What if there was a way for me to get the exact house address that I know will spend over $132 on a dress every year? Creepy, right? It's very creepy. And we can figure that out. So I am about to go into our Mergent Intellect database. Does anyone have any questions about Gale Business Demographics Now? Do you love the maps? I love the maps. I also want to show you if you want to, instead of doing kind of these borders, whoop, I'm zooming out. You can also draw on this map. I'll wait if anyone has any questions. Yeah, you could draw like you'll have to exit out of that essentially. So let's exit. But you can take away the borders and you could actually draw, like if I wanted to create all of this area and see all of that information. It's very cool. All right, we are going to go over to Mergent Intellect now. I will keep this up in case anyone has any supplemental questioning later. So I'm going back to the business page and I'm clicking on Mergent Intellect. So I had finished talking about how great it would be if I could possibly have a list of addresses to maybe send a mailer to that I know is interested in women's apparel, specifically dresses. So Mergent Intellect, it's another amazing database. It has a lot of information about businesses, corporations, even residences, key business ratios, and also a lot of stuff on demographics. We're going to be focusing, instead of on demographics, consumer data. So I got to this by, this is the home page for Mergent Intellect, scrolling all the way down to the bottom and clicking on consumer data. So you have some options. You can just put in a name. So I did this earlier. So it's interesting. I'm listed in here under my maiden name, but not my married name. So we'll just search that up. And I'm a Champaign native. Not native, but I guess townie is a better way to see. This has me in it, and it probably has you in it too. I welcome you to just go ahead and see if you can find yourself. But so it has, that's the house I grew up in, my old phone telephone number. I cannot pronounce that. Old home telephone number. There we go. It also has estimated demographic data. So apparently my income is 125,000 or more. That'd be really great. I'm single and I'm a credit card user. This is so creepy that they are able to find this information about me. I mean, and they get this information through Google, through social media. Every time you utilize Google or other search engines, you're using them for free, and in exchange, they're taking data from you. So here's a way to see what happens when you purchase things online. So it can say that, yes, I've actually purchased women apparel in the past. Yeah, I like parenting and children's interest bundle. I'm a book buyer. I'm a book reader. Wow, they've called me out hard. This is very, very accurate. I love DIY and health. But it also got a couple of things wrong. So these are all estimates. It's good to keep that in mind. I do not make 125 grand a year. I'm not single. I'm not a homeowner. I'm a renter. So none of these other home things apply. So it's good to know that these are hypotheticals. So let's go back to, so we were initially at quick search. That's how you found yourself or myself. We're going to click on advanced search. So I want to do kind of a direct marketing where I can get the addresses of people who are interested in women's apparel. So I'm first going to click on location, and I'm going to go through county. Or let's do zip codes actually instead. So 61821. Make sure you click add to criteria. You could also do a nice comma there if you want to add more, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So 61820, let's just do Champaign. So make sure you click add to criteria. It's not going to add these things unless you click that add to criteria button. And you'll also notice it has that kind of in the bottom. So right now it has found 88,000 people who live in these 3 zip codes. So let's narrow it down a little bit. Housing. Home market value. Again, these are all estimates. Notice that I did not own a home and yet it assumed I did. But let's say let's say someone who lives in a bigger home. So let's just go ahead and click these, but not too big. Actually, I mean, these are massive. We'll just go for it. So that narrowed it down to 56,000. Let's check out lifestyle. This is where the creep factor comes in. I want someone who's in women's apparel. I also want someone who, I don't know, maybe is into physical fitness or self-improvement. Let's go with these. Yeah, I think that people who are into fitness or self-improvement would like my apparel. Maybe I'm selling some fitness gear. All right, so again, clicking on that add to criteria. Now it's narrowed it down to 5,000. We can also experiment with this consumer detail. I can do male or female, homeowner renter, marital status, ethnicity, even net worth, estimated income. You can really narrow this down. Let's say if again, I want people to buy a ton of clothes, so really wealthy individuals. All right, I've narrowed it down to 1,291 people. Click on that search. And look at this. It is a list of, and some phone numbers, of the people who match that data. It's interesting though, it has a lot of people within one household. And again, these people might not even live there anymore, but that's not the point. The point is we want addresses where people have had a history of either searching for or have bought women's apparel previously. It is good to note that Mergent Intellect, if you are downloading this information, it can only download 2,000 results at a time. So if we hadn't narrowed it down to 1291, we would have had to download it in separate parts. And this is really nice. It can export it to an Excel sheet or a CSV. All right. Do we have any questions about Mergent Intellect and how it's crazy how much little privacy you have? All right. In that case, I'll just let you know what, I encourage you all to continue exploring while I continue the presentation. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slides, and we're going to get into building a buyer persona. If I can go to the right page, there we go. Okay. Oop. There we go. All right, so the only way to build a complete buyer persona is to combine relevant demographic and psychographic information with an understanding of what makes your target customers buy. For example, a standard buyer persona might introduce you to Madison. She's a 35-year-old project manager who loves cats and yoga. But what does this actually mean for your business? Does her love of cats or approach to exercise help you influence her choice to try out your project management software? It does not. So that's why it is so important to figure out this buyer's behavior, because without that, you're not going to be able to complete your buyer persona. So to understand your buyer's behavior, we need to understand how consumers make buying decisions. So consumers and businesses have processes for making decisions about purchases. These decision-making processes are affected by cultural, social, individual, and psychological factors. The process starts with a need recognition, and this could be as simple as running out of coffee. It could also take place over several months, such as when repeated car repairs influence a consumer to make a decision to buy a new car. Next, the buyer gathers this information. If the consumer is making a decision to purchase a house, he or she might research information about financing, available homes, and so forth. Once that consumer has gathered, nope, not a question, has gathered this information, they must evaluate the alternatives. So the person who started looking at houses to buy, they need to eliminate all the homes that are outside of their budget. So let's put a cap at 150 grand. Or maybe they don't want to buy anything that's more than a 30-minute drive to work. So after evaluating the alternatives or the variables, the customer will make a decision based on those alternatives. Then the consumer makes the purchase decision, and that's the decision to buy or not to buy. Most people think this is the end of the purchase decision-making process, and it is not. The final thing, which is your post-purchase behavior, I would argue is honestly the most important to you as a business owner, because that is when the customer assesses the decision itself, so assesses the whole progress, and his or her satisfaction with the purchase, which would include in this case the home, but also the buying experience. So this really focuses in how would this buyer find you? On your website, do you have keywords that they're going to think of searching? There's amazing websites out there that have prompts for maybe including these SEO words into your website to increase the amount of clicks and visibility it might have. What is that person going to type in? So I always think of whenever you're searching something on Google, it might have those prompted, like if you put green in, it might say eggs and ham. What are those prompts? What are they most likely to enter in when they're searching for something that you can provide them? So another easy way of thinking about this is the when, where, what, how, and why. When do they realize they need something that you can provide? Where do they find it? What are they looking for? How do they purchase it? And then at the very end, why? This buyer's behavior will change individually. There's not a set group that we can ascribe this to. The mosaics do help because it says it kind of fulfills that how, or like where do they go for this information? Where are they most likely to be receptive to this information? But it doesn't cover a lot of the other factors. So that's why we are creating these buyer personas. So when it comes to defining the information, your persona should include input from as many different perspectives within your company, or if you're solo, just a variety of viewpoints as possible. It should include input from a marketing standpoint. So looking at your performance metrics to understand who is the most responsive to your product and positioning. From a sales standpoint, so see past your sales data to uncover what kinds of people are most likely to buy from you. And then share maybe additional information about what kinds of people are easiest to work with during the sales process. Also think about customer service viewpoint. What kind of people make the happiest, most loyal customers? In addition to these customer-facing aspects, you also need to focus on that back office input points. So maybe from a financial point, how are they buying these products? What sort of, like if they're purchasing online, do you need to include PayPal, or can you just go with a credit card? So we're thinking about everything. We're essentially creating small people. That is what we're doing. We're creating just, what is this person going to do? How are they going to do it? So earlier when we were using DemographicsNow and Mergent Intellect, we were identifying the who. So we've done that. So now we have to go figure out the what, why, and how. So here's the what. And on one side of the screen, I have just kind of questions to ask yourself. And I've also created Busy Bertha. So she is actually based off of the Mergent Intellect B09, which let me go there earlier when I was playing around or putting this together. And here's also a quick way to just look at all of the mosaic demographics. If you click help, scroll down, you can see these mosaic types. So here's just, they have a grand index, but you can actually look at each of these, and I encourage you to click and see and maybe identify, like, you know what, I really like this rural Southern Bliss mosaic type N48, and they are the people that I want to market to. And you can determine how to do that. So I had B09. So Bertha, she belongs in the family fantastic. She's upscale. She has a family. She has younger children. She's really into social media, but she's not super tech savvy. She is also really great at email, but she likes to have fun. She also likes, she's kind of has a sustainable background. So I took information from here and now I'm incorporating it with this buyer persona. Present. All right. So when it comes to defining the information, we should start with your company's purpose. So here's this goal right here. We're figuring out the what of the buyer persona. If you have a concrete understanding of the problem that your company is meant to solve, that forms the foundation of your buyer persona. So once you know the problem people want you to solve, you can start brainstorming the broad categories of people who will have that problem. You can start by identifying any commonalities among your most successful customers. If you're already a business, it makes it infinitely easier than if you haven't done this yet, but this is where you can start just by asking friends, asking people around you, and also maybe doing some research on businesses that are similar to the one that you want to start up. So identifying what traits do your customers have that are highly correlated with success. Are they very satisfied? Try to identify why they are satisfied. Maybe there's one particular kind of person who sees a lot of success for your product, or those who are moderately okay, and also others that are completely dissatisfied. It is important to define these three categories just because, again, this gives you a rough idea of how many personas you actually should create. And I want to stress, it is great. You should be creating your ideal customer, but also maybe your negative customer, like the one that you don't want to advertise to or you don't want to get. Because again, that allows you to narrow your focus and really target the person who's going to make your company the most successful. All right. So this information might be extremely helpful for marketing, but none of this will really help your sales. So questions that a salesperson might ask for each persona will be things like, how high of a priority is overcoming this problem? So we're on this challenge aspect right here. What kinds of goals is this problem preventing this person from achieving? Is this persona typically the only person involved in the purchasing decision, or will they have to get buy-in from other people before they can buy? How long or short do they expect this process to be? Do they typically view your product's price as being high, low, or about average? This is a lot of information and a lot of questions that I'm asking, but that's okay, and that's kind of the point of this. Getting all these questions will provide you with the recipe for creating a fantastic buyer persona. So once you've kind of brainstormed all of these questions and answers, you need to identify the best way to answer them by looking at the data that we've grabbed from Mergent, Intellect, or DemographicsNow, performing customer interviews, and making educated guesses. So you try to answer as many questions as possible using data you already have. For example, you can even look at marketing data from your most and least possible content pieces. If you have a Facebook account, you can go into your business analytics view and see how many people reacted to this one post, and then look at the demographics of that population. Is it women aged 30 to 45? What else do these women like doing? You could even click on other profiles and see, like, what else do they like? These are essentially sales data for patterns, and you can see who is most receptive to what you're offering and who isn't. You can also look at data at your existing customers and see if there's any patterns in people who remain loyal and buy multiple times versus those who buy once and then disappear. So this is what I filled out. My company that I made up, I want to create an app that makes people purchase local goods from community members in a way that's really easy, not hard, and I want Bertha to just be over the moon with this. So my goal, and Bertha's goal too, she prioritizes time efficient, things that emphasize community. That's her like social media aspect. She loves talking about her goods. She loves getting people involved and interested. Oh my gosh, I'm almost out of time. Yep, so this slide just goes over that. I apologize. I got too excited about those demographics. So essentially it's just asking yourself, what are these challenges? So identifying them, really brainstorming Bertha's characteristics. What can we do to make Bertha like our product? What can we do to kind of get her to fulfill the goals? So after you have the what, you need to go to the why, which this is where you kind of really interview customers you currently have, or maybe ones that you don't have yet. So you can utilize surveys, questionnaires, focus groups, and interviews. One thing that's important, I'm referring to Busy Bertha as a real life person. I know her wants and needs. Bertha is at this point my very good friend, and I know all of her problems and what solutions might be best for her. That there is the key to a good buyer persona, getting in the mindset of your potential customer. So I actually do have a handout I can email to everyone that actually goes over these what, whys, and hows. And so essentially at the end of your buyer persona, it's figuring out what is your marketing messaging? How are you describing your solution? How are you delivering it? So Bertha's social media, I'm probably going to hit her up on Facebook by doing a focused advertisement that does this hyper-local one-stop shop for your holiday needs. And also include an elevator pitch. Again, we are catering and customizing this to each of these individual personas. And we want to make sure that we know them personally so they can get really into it. These personas inform everything our customer-facing teams or individuals do. For marketing, we're using them to create and position content. For sales, we're using them as a benchmark for qualifying and understanding individual contacts. And regarding customer service, we're using these personas as a guide to provide our customers with the best possible experiences using the product. We need to make sure that there are ways for marketing, sales, and customer service to all give feedback, pitch in, and understand that these personas are going to be improved upon and change over time. So here is a template that I am happy to send to anyone who's interested. I'll probably just send it to everyone who signed up, but it's really great. It walks you through the sections of creating a persona. So that was the who, this is the what, there's why, and how. And they're editable. This is just a JPEG that I put in my presentation. But the biggest point is never stop growing better. It's important to keep in mind that the work of creating a persona is never done. Even if you get your persona into an optimal state, people change as time goes by. Our community is going to change as time goes by. A few years from now, communication channels are going to completely change. New competitors will have entered the market, and your products have matured, changed, and your customer base have grown. If you're consistently getting feedback from a lot of these areas, if you have a marketing team, sales team, your existing persona should also gradually change to match the changes in the people it represents. But it could be that an entirely new person or category of people are now interested in your product, and you'll need to create a brand new persona to represent them. By using the steps we've outlined, by using these amazing databases like Gale, Business, DemographicsNow, and Mergent, Intellect, we can create that persona and stay ahead of the curve. And that's the biggest part of what it means to grow better as a business. So I, right on the dot, 8 o'clock, am so happy to talk about this further, and I really want to reiterate that you are welcome to connect with me through email. I'll go ahead and type in my email here, mwolske@champaign.org. If you have any questions about this presentation, if you we're really interested in seeing what other things you can do with DemographicsNow, I would love to show you what we can do with just these two databases. And we have so many more at CPL, and lots of amazing classes too if maybe you want to learn more about doing direct marketing. We have classes on LinkedIn. I also encourage you, I'm going to go to our website here, check out our events. So these are just webinars because nothing is in person at the moment, but business events are always in green. You can actually event type business, but I encourage you to check out our career events, our technology events. We have such a wonderful arrangement, oh my gosh, range of things at the library. So the next webinar, I'm also teaching that one. It's going to be on December 7th at 7 p.m. and I'm going to go over how to make your own e-commerce store. So I'll be covering some really great free services and resources that you can utilize, the pros and cons of each of them, and also if you already have an e-commerce platform, how can you really put it on the market? So we might get into a little SEO. We're going to play around with some Google Analytics. It's going to be a crazy time. Really, really fun. And it looks like I don't have any more questions. So I would like to thank you all for coming this evening. I know 7 p.m., especially when it gets so dark so early, is kind of a hard time to make, but I really appreciate it, and it just brings me so much joy to be able to share these amazing resources with you all in the community. Again, if you have any questions, my name is Madeleine Wolske, Business Librarian at CPL, and don't be a stranger. All right. Well, I will be emailing this recording to everyone who had signed up for this webinar, and I will also include the template to create your own buyer persona. Again, thank you all and have a wonderful evening.